Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. The fire potential impacts for the next couple of days are shown here. We continue to see some wind in place across the Great Basin over the next couple of days. For today, it's mainly over Idaho into western Wyoming and portions of northern Utah, where we'll see gusts 25 to 35 miles an hour with RH from 10 to 20%. Tomorrow, the winds really lighten up. And then the winds return again on Friday with some stronger winds with gusts 30 to 40 miles an hour in this brown shaded area over northern Nevada, much of Idaho, and into northern portions of western Wyoming with slightly lighter winds, but still quite gusty further south. Yesterday was a quiet day with no precip or lightning. And the past 24 hours of fire activity showed 6 new fires for 25 acres and large fire growth of just over 1,362 acres. Observed precip for the past 7 days shows very little, practically no precip, just a couple little dots here and there across Utah. And then the past 14 days percent of average shows a very dry trend as well, especially over Utah, portions of Idaho, northern and southern Nevada. ERCs have been on the rise region-wide for the past 7 to 10 days under the warm, dry air mass. We see values over Utah and up into western Wyoming, up around the 80th to 90th percentile. Slightly lower values further west and north, but on the increase area-wide. If we take a closer look at the trends here over the central Idaho mountains, we can see the values just below the historical records, but the forecast showing a dry pattern continuing. We'll see those values coming up right on those historical maximums. Same with Uinta Wasatch in northern Utah here. Those values are below the historical maximums right now, but over the next week we'll see continued dryness and we'll really be bumping up against those historical maximums. This morning's satellite imagery is showing an elongated high pressure ridge over the western U.S. And a kind of a flat trough here moving over the Pacific Northwest into the northern Rockies. That will increase winds today across the north. Smoke impacts are shown here. Most of the smoke we'll see in the Great Basin is coming from fires within the Great Basin, and we can see based off the smoke trajectory here that the winds are out of the west, primarily across the north. And tomorrow the winds lighten up a bit, but we will still see some smoke impacts across the north near those fires. So for today, again, we can see the increased westerly flow across the north, and we do have high risk issued for our central Idaho zones into eastern Idaho, western Wyoming, and northern Utah for those winds and low relative humidity today. Closer look at those winds show the strongest gusts are going to be along the upper Snake River Plain and into western Wyoming with gusts up to 35 miles an hour, but gusts 25 to 30 miles an hour expected over the central Idaho mountains and into northern Utah. Minimum relative humidities will be in the single digits for much of Utah and Nevada, slightly higher over eastern Idaho, but still fairly low for the time of year. On Thursday, we can see the ridge strengthening just a bit over the Great Basin. This will keep winds on the lighter side tomorrow with no high risk. Again, a closer look at the winds, showing pretty light values tomorrow afternoon, and minimum relative humidities remain low across the area, even dropping further tomorrow across the central Idaho mountains down into the teens with those minimum relative humidities. On Friday, another trough moving into the Pacific Northwest, which will increase winds quite a bit across Idaho and northern Nevada. We have a high risk issued for these winds across much of those areas. Closer look at the winds here showing some pretty gusty conditions over the central Idaho mountains and into western Wyoming with gusts 35 to 40 miles an hour expected. And northern Nevada will be pretty gusty as well, and northern Utah will see gusts 25 to 30 miles an hour. Minimum relative humidities will still remain quite low across Nevada, Utah, and over the central Idaho mountains. Maximum temperatures are pretty warm for the first week of October. We'll see highs in the low 90s in Reno today and mainly in the 80s across Utah and Nevada with slightly cooler temperatures further north. But with the warming atmosphere over the next couple of days, we'll see warmer temperatures on Friday with highs in the mid 80s across the Snake River Plain and highs in the mid to upper 80s in Salt Lake. 3-day precip totals show a pretty dry atmosphere for much of the area. There is a very slight chance of maybe some cloud cover moving into central Idaho in the Saturday timeframe. So for Saturday, we'll see the ridge continuing to rebuilding after that trough passage on Friday for continued warm temperatures. More of the same on Sunday, dry, warm conditions area-wide. On Monday, a little trough develops off the California coast here, which will allow some moisture to move up into Nevada and Utah. Not looking for any precipitation, but maybe a little bit of cloud cover. On Tuesday, we'll see a continuation of maybe a little bit of mid-level moisture for continued clouds in Utah, but another trough building over the Pacific Northwest will increase winds across much of the area beginning on Tuesday. Again, 7-day precip totals aren't showing much at all in the extended forecast for precip. We're just seeing a continuation of warm and dry conditions area-wide. The extended forecast for October 9th through the 15th shows continued warm and dry conditions across the area. We're not looking for any significant changes to the weather pattern for the foreseeable future. This concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.